Okay, did I do it? Did I do the dark academia? I have a bow in the front, bow in the back. Anyway, welcome back to Zoe's Tropes. I was rewatching Hannibal again recently. I watch it like every year. It's my favorite show to come back to. So if you don't know, Hannibal is about this very fancy cannibal named Hannibal, and the shenanigans he pulls while he's trying to undermine the FBI, particularly a very distressed profiler named Will Graham. And Will Graham is able to empathize with criminals, especially serial killers. It's atmospheric, it's witty, it's artsy, and the last season of Hannibal is the best season. Don't fight me on it, don't even try. Our favorite cannibal, Hannibal, is very cultured. He's, European. I'm gonna move my cart. So I was thinking, I've got this book channel, and it would be kind of fun to look at some of the many literary references in this show. I stuck to the NBC show exclusively, so not the Thomas Harris books, not Anthony Hopkins movies. This still left me with a pretty chunky selection, and it's not every reference. So if you would like a part 2, I could do one. Okay, so here's what we've got. A Brief History of Time from the Big Bang to Black Holes by Stephen Hawking. It makes astrophysics and theoretical physics accessible to the general public. So Hannibal regularly references Hawking's theory of entropy and nonlinear time when he's talking about the famous teacup. It comes up a lot throughout the show. So in season 2, episode 11, Hannibal is talking to Will about Abigail, basically their surrogate daughter, and how Hannibal's actions led to Abigail not being able to be in Will's life.
Sorry. I took that from you. Wish I could give it back.
So do I.
He says he wished the dropped teacup could bring itself together again. And then 2 episodes later, Hannibal reveals to Will that Abigail is alive and that he's organized it so that they can have a life, all 3 of them together. And he says, time did reverse, the teacup that I shattered did come together. Okay, next up is the Iliad by Homer. It's the big Greek epic about the Trojan War, focusing on the character of Achilles toward the end of the war. In season 2, episode 12, Will is plotting to bring down Hannibal, and Hannibal's just doing a little doodle, and he shows Will the sketch, and it's the scene of Achilles mourning Patroclus. And he compares Will to Patroclus's empathy, and he compares himself to Achilles and the fact that they really only care about this one man, and that the rest of society could burn down for all they care.
Took divine intervention to bring them down.
I think this is the scene that Hannibal is depicting in his illustration. God, I love those man-killing hands on your chest. Next up, we've got Dante's Vita Nuova. It's a mix of poetry and narrative. It's about Dante's theories of love articulated via his love for this woman, Beatrice. In season 3, episode 1, Hannibal's proving his worth to a bunch of professors, and he recites the first sonnet from Vita Nuova, in the original Italian, of course. And that sonnet is a dream that Dante's having where the personification of love, amore, is holding Dante's heart in his hand and feeding it to Beatrice.
Chiama desto cuore ardendo, lei paventosa, umilmente, pascea. A preso gir, non ne vedea piangendo. Dante's first sonnet. It fascinated Cavalcanti. The eating of the heart is a powerful image.
Later in the season, Bedelia references Vita Nuova when Will asks her, is Hannibal in love with me? And, of course, she gives this answer.
Could he daily feel a stab of hunger for you and find nourishment at the very sight of you? Yes. But do you ache for him?
Anyway, I got this copy of La Vida Nueva in the mail. It's a really cute edition. It's definitely going up on my shelf of cute old books. But tragically, it is not in English. The front matter is, which is where I was fooled, like, that's English, I can read that. But then the actual poem is in the original Italian. And I'm not so committed to this bit that I'm going to learn and be able to read archaic Italian, and so I've ordered the Oxford World's Classics edition. Songs of Innocence and Experience by William Blake, and he tackles the purity of childhood and how it's inevitably corrupted by religion, industry, politics, and just general society. Lots of Blake references throughout, especially season 3 during the Red Dragon storyline, because the Red Dragon takes his inspiration from Blake's art. So rather than revisiting all of Blake's work, what I'm going to do is just reread The Tiger, the one poem. It's referenced in season 3, episode 10, when Hannibal is trying to encourage the Red Dragon to embrace the dragon side of him.
See how magnificent you are. Did he who made the lamb make thee?
On what wings dare he aspire, what the hand dare seize the fire? How dare someone make something as terrifying as the tiger? I think that Hannibal uses the line, did he who make the lamb make thee, to undermine the dragon. So what he's doing is thinking of himself separately from God or higher than God and his creatures. And what Hannibal does is remind him, like, you're cut from the same cloth. That's what I've got for tonight, pals. But I was just thinking that I was making cookies yesterday and it called for a single large room temperature egg. And that is certainly what this is. Lastly, Faust Part 1 by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. So Faust is a very smart and accomplished man, but he wants to know more. He wants to know everything. So he makes a deal with Mr.
You want to ask Mr. Mephistopheles, the original conjuring cat.
He makes a deal with Mephistopheles. No. A deal with Mephistopheles, who will do his bidding until he eventually dies, and then in hell his soul belongs to Mephistopheles. There's a bunch of references to Faust throughout season 3. In episode 3, Hannibal says,
I was rooting for Mephistopheles and contemptuous of Faust.
Episode 11, Will confronts Hannibal about this whole thing with the Red Dragon, and instead of giving a straight answer, of course, Hannibal says,
2 souls, alas, are dwelling in my breast, and one is striving to forsake its brother.
Welcome to Cooking with Zoe's Tropes. I will be doing a recipe from the Hannibal cookbook that I have. It's the protein scramble, which is the first thing that Hannibal cooks for Will. I have made sausage and eggs before, don't you worry. But this one's a little bit fancier, I guess, because the cookbook is written by the food stylist for the show. And if you've seen the show, you know that the food in it is very beautiful. So I've got some frozen croissants that have been proofed for the day. Oh yes, it is night out. I am having breakfast for dinner. What are you going to do about it? Okay, so I swear that this is pomegranate splatter here, not blood. The sausages have been broiled and sliced, and now they're frying on the stove. The croissants are in the oven. I think next step is to just mix up my eggs and cream and salt and pepper. Yeah. I don't have any decorative flowers, but I do have chive. Okay, there she is. The croissant's like little horns, I suppose, like the Wendigo. Yeah. So it's scrambled egg and breakfast sausage, mushrooms, chive, and of course this cute little croissant at the top. So that's my attempt. I am no food stylist, but it's cute and I hope yummy.
Good morning, Will. May I come in? Coast and cold. May I come in? God forbid you become deadly. I don't value that much. Next to the bar. Finish it.
I couldn't help but realize as I was planning this video that I was kind of leaving out a crucial character from the show, which is, Mr. Will Graham himself. So while I love the dark academia cannibal vibes of Dr. Lecter, my fashion sense and my love for dogs aligns more with Will Graham. So I've done a little Will Graham interlude featuring a couple of references that he makes. First is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Victor Frankenstein is a student who wants to find out how to make life out of death. He sure does. He gives it a shot. In season 3, episode 10, Will makes fun of Bedelia by calling her the
Bride of Frankenstein.
And she responds by saying,
We've both been his bride.
And the next up is Bluebeard by Charles Perrault. This is all of the Mother Goose stories, but one of them is Bluebeard. A young woman's forced into marriage with this guy Bluebeard, and he gives her one rule, which is don't go into my creepy basement. And of course she goes into his creepy basement. In season 3, episode 12, Will and Bedelia are at it again.
Bluebeard's wife. Secrets you're not to know, yet sworn to keep.
If I'm to be Bluebeard's wife, I would have preferred to be the last.
They really do just bully each other via literary references for the entirety of season 3. Despite the number of Percy's words, the novel was conceived and mainly written by Mary Shelley, as attested not only by others in their circle, but by the nature of the manuscript evidence in the surviving pages of the draft. Now, I didn't know that we needed this to be proven. I've done all my readings now. Here are my conclusions and interpretations. So this was my first time reading A Brief History of Time, and thought it was pretty great. I really did like the Arrow of Time section. That was probably the one that like actually stuck with me. The rest of it, I was reading it and I go, okay, black holes. Okay, I don't know what to do with this information. So here's part of what Hannibal is referencing. An intact cup on the table is a state of high order, but a broken cup on the floor is a disordered state. One can go readily from the cup on the table in the past to the broken cup on the floor in the future, but not the other way around. The increase of disorder or entropy with time is one example of what is called an arrow of time, something that distinguishes the past from the future, giving a direction to time. The Iliad, I've read the Iliad before, and this time I just read like the part where Achilles is mourning Patroclus. I didn't cry this time, but I have cried reading this passage from Book 18. A black cloud of grief came shrouding over Achilles, both hands clawing the ground for soot and filth. He poured it over his head, fouled his handsome face, and black ashes settled into his clean, fresh war shirt. Overpowered in all his power, sprawled in the dust, Achilles lay there fallen, tearing his hair, defiling it with his own hands. Okay, Dante. Hannibal is in love. I can see how Dante's descriptions of that deep, like soul-consuming feeling of love really appeals to Hannibal. It was really cool to see that there's the poem, or many poems, and then in a narrative, Dante sort of breaks down why he structured the poem in that way and what each part of the poem means. Really breaking down his philosophy of love. Like Beatrice, Will's sort of a spectator to the love that they receive against their will. Songs of Innocence and Experience, another reread. I love the tiger. The whole poem really does demonstrate how Hannibal really has this awe about the red dragon. He didn't want to like him, but he likes him. Until, you know. Faust Part 1, another reread. One day I might read Part 2, but the general consensus is that it kind of sucks. So maybe one day I will make my own opinion, but I'm not in a hurry. I do love the idea, though, that Hannibal thinks it's kind of a hot take to side with Mephistopheles, because he's, like, really fun, but Faust is not. Next, Bluebeard by Charles Perrault. I hadn't read the original, so it was pretty nice. So Frankenstein, reading this edition, the original with Percy Shelley, was really interesting. I don't know if I would recommend like reading this if you're not already very familiar with like the versions of Frankenstein that we know, so the 1818 edition or the 1830 edition. The idea of collaboration to this extent where you can go in and attempt to pry apart the different voices, but really they are one whole, is very hannigram. So these references, I'm not surprised to get from Hannibal and Will. They're classics of European literature, and also Stephen Hawking. But, you know, it's not a classic of European literature. I think these references, like going in and seeing the full text or the full sections that the throwaway like lines or quotes are referencing, I think really goes to show that Hannibal's very into Will, even when he's not actually talking about Will, like with the Dante recitation, when he's not actually talking about Will in the conversation, but still is imbued with that bodily, holistic desire. So yeah, this was fun. I'd love to do more like reading like different characters. Any like cool recommendations for characters who have interesting reading lists, drop them in the comments. I hope this was fun. This wasn't a bit of a new one for me. Yeah, like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next week.